The first time my mother looked me in the eyes and called me a liar, I felt something inside me break. Not because I was guilty, but because I knew nothing I said would make her believe me. She stood in the middle of my living room with her arms folded, her face filled with disappointment. I knew something was wrong. She whispered bitterly. You've been hiding another man. My husband. Daniel stood beside the window in complete silence. He didn't defend me. He didn't accuse me. He simply watched. That silence hurt even more. I looked from one face to the other, struggling to breathe. What are you talking about? I asked. My mother's eyes filled with angry tears. Don't insult my intelligence. She reached into her purse and threw several printed photographs across the coffee table. The pictures scattered everywhere. In every single one, I was standing beside the same man. Sometimes outside a cafe, sometimes walking into an office building, sometimes laughing, sometimes hugging him. At first glance, it looked terrible. My mother's voice trembled. You've been seeing him for months. I stared at the pictures. Then I closed my eyes. I recognized every moment, every place, every smile. But not for the reason she believed. The man wasn't my lover, he was my older brother. The brother my mother believed had died 22 years ago. Only, she didn't know he was alive. Because my father had taken him away after the divorce. And she had spent 2 decades believing he had disappeared forever. I had discovered him only 6 months earlier. I hadn't told anyone. Not even Daniel. Because my brother had begged me for time. He wanted to reconnect slowly. He wasn't ready to reopen old wounds. And I had promised to respect that. Now that promise was destroying my marriage. My mother pointed toward the photographs. Tell the truth. I looked at Daniel. His face was impossible to read. Finally he asked quietly, Who is he? I wanted to answer. I really did, but I had made a promise. A promise to the only sibling I'd ever had. The silence lasted too long. My mother laughed bitterly. There it is. She can't even deny it. Then she turned toward Daniel. I'm sorry you married someone capable of this. Those words pierced deeper than any knife. Daniel still said nothing. He simply bent down, picked up every photograph, studied them carefully, and slipped them into his jacket. Then he looked at me. I'll be back. Without another word, he walked out. My mother shook her head. You've lost him. The front door slammed shut. And for the first time in my life, I wondered if telling the truth too late could hurt more than lying. The next 3 days felt like years. Daniel barely answered my calls. He slept at his brother's apartment. My mother refused to speak to me. Relatives began calling. Apparently she had already told everyone. My aunt asked if I was leaving my husband. My cousin asked if the affair had been going on for long. Even neighbors started staring whenever I walked outside. One accusation had become everyone's version of the truth. I wanted to scream. Instead, I cried alone. On the 4th evening, someone knocked on my apartment door. I expected Daniel. Instead, it was him. Nathan, my brother, the same man from every photograph. He immediately noticed my swollen eyes. What happened? I couldn't speak. I simply handed him the photographs. As he looked through them, his face turned pale. Oh no, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I shook my head. This isn't your fault. It is. He sat beside me. I never should have asked you to keep me secret. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally he looked at me. I'm ready. Ready for what? To tell everyone. I stared at him. He smiled sadly. I've already lost 22 years. I'm not losing my sister too. Tears filled my eyes again. For the first time, they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of hope. The next morning, Nathan asked me to meet him somewhere. When I arrived, I froze. Daniel was already there. So was my mother. My heart nearly stopped. Nathan walked toward them carrying an old wooden box. Inside were dozens of photographs, letters, birth certificates, hospital records, school reports, family pictures, everything from before the divorce. He placed one faded photograph on the table. It showed a little girl, holding hands with a smiling boy. Behind them stood my mother, young, happy, unaware that life would soon separate them forever. Nathan looked directly at her. Mom. The word echoed through the room. My mother's face drained of color. No. She whispered. No. Nathan nodded slowly. It's me. She stepped backward. Her hands began shaking uncontrollably. My son. Nathan's own eyes filled with tears. I never died. I was taken away. You searched for you. But Dad made sure we never found each other. The room became completely silent. My mother collapsed into a chair. She touched the old photograph with trembling fingers, then looked at Nathan's face. The resemblance now impossible to ignore. She began crying harder than I'd ever seen. "I'm sorry," she whispered repeatedly. "I'm so sorry." Nathan knelt beside her. "There was nothing to forgive. You were lied to." For nearly an hour, mother and son embraced while 22 years of grief slowly melted away. I watched quietly. Then I noticed Daniel standing alone near the window. He was holding something. One photograph. The same photograph he had taken 4 days earlier. He walked toward everyone. "I have something to say." My mother looked up. Daniel placed the picture on the table. "When your daughter couldn't explain who Nathan was, though. I thought she was hiding something." He paused. "So I investigated." He looked toward Nathan. "I hired a private investigator." Everyone stared. The investigator found adoption records, custody documents, and one forgotten newspaper clipping. He gently pushed another old photograph forward. It showed my father, holding Nathan's hand, leaving the courthouse 22 years earlier. Daniel continued softly. "She wasn't hiding another man. She was protecting her brother." Then he looked at me. "And I should have trusted my wife before believing appearances." I couldn't stop crying. He reached into his pocket, pulled out one final photograph. Unlike the others, it had been taken only yesterday. It showed Nathan and me standing outside our childhood home, brother and sister, smiling through tears. On the back, Daniel had written only 7 words. "Family found each other because love never quit." He handed it to my mother. "Keep this one, so you'll never lose either of them again." My mother stood slowly. She walked toward me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she wrapped her arms around me. "I'm ashamed. I accused you without asking. I chose suspicion instead of trust." I held her tightly. "I forgive you." She cried even harder. So easily. I smiled through my tears. "We've already lost 22 years. I'm not losing another day." Daniel stepped closer. "I owe you an apology too?" I doubted the woman who's never given me a reason to. I took his hand. "We all made mistakes. The important thing is that we didn't let them become permanent." Months later, our home was filled with laughter instead of silence. Nathan became a regular part of every family dinner. My mother never stopped making up for the years she had missed. Daniel framed that final photograph and hung it in our hallway. Whenever guests asked why it was our favorite picture, he always smiled and gave the same answer. "Because it's proof that the truth may arrive late, but when it does, it can heal wounds that lies kept open for decades." And every time I passed that photograph, I remembered one painful lesson that changed my life forever. The most dangerous secrets are not always the ones we hide. Sometimes, they are the stories people choose to believe before they ever ask for the truth. The weeks that followed felt nothing like the peaceful ending people imagine after a family reunion. Finding Nathan had healed one wound, but it exposed many others. My mother hardly slept. Every morning she sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold in her hands, staring at old photographs she had kept hidden in a wooden box for more than 2 decades. Sometimes she smiled. Most of the time she cried. One afternoon I found her holding a tiny blue sweater. "I knitted this for Nathan when he was 4, she whispered. "I kept telling myself that if he ever came home, I wanted to have at least one thing that still belonged to him." And Nathan gently took the sweater. It barely fit over one arm now. Yet he hugged it as though it were priceless. "I thought nobody remembered me," he said quietly. Mother broke down again. I remembered every single day. Daniel watched the two of them with moist eyes. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, he wrapped his arms around me. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About trust." I looked at him. I realized something. "When your mother accused you, I didn't really doubt your love." "So what did you doubt?" "My own judgment." He sighed. The photographs looked convincing. They were designed to. I became afraid of looking foolish. I squeezed his hand. "You weren't the only one. I should have trusted you with Nathan's secret." He shook his head. "You made a promise. And I should have trusted the woman who has never lied to me." For the first time in days, neither of us blamed the other. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. Sometimes it arrives quietly, during honest conversations. A month later, Nathan invited all of us to his home. None of us had ever been there. It was small, simple, filled with books. On one shelf sat dozens of old journals. "I've written since I was 12, he explained. Mother picked one up carefully. "May I?" Nathan hesitated before nodding. She opened to the very first page. Written in uneven handwriting were words that made everyone in the room freeze. Today I dreamed Mom came back for me. Mother covered her mouth. Nathan looked away. I used to have that dream almost every night. She turned another page. Maybe she couldn't find me. Another. Maybe she still loves me. Another. If I ever meet my sister again, I hope she remembers me. By now, tears rolled down everyone's face. Mother couldn't continue reading. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Nathan smiled sadly. If forgiveness depended on deserving it, nobody would ever receive it. She hugged him tightly. That evening changed our family forever. Instead of talking about the years we had lost, we began talking about the years we still had left. Life slowly became normal again. Or as normal as it could. Then one unexpected phone call changed everything. It came from an elderly lawyer. I've been trying to locate the Morgan family. Daniel answered. This is Daniel. The lawyer introduced himself. My name is Robert Ellis. I handled your late father's legal affairs many years ago. The room became silent. Our father had passed away 3 years earlier. None of us had spoken to him in nearly 20 years. There is something all of you should know, the lawyer continued. There is one unopened letter. It was left with instructions that it could only be delivered after both children had reunited. Nathan frowned. How could he know we'd reunite? He didn't. He simply hoped. 2 days later, we sat together in the lawyer's office. The envelope looked old, yellow with age. Mother refused to touch it. Nathan finally opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. He began reading aloud. If you're reading this, then somehow you found each other. I don't expect forgiveness. I spent years convincing myself I was protecting my son. The truth is, I was protecting my pride. Mother closed her eyes. Nathan continued. Your mother never stopped loving either of you. I lied because I couldn't bear the thought of losing. Instead, everyone lost. No one spoke. The lawyer quietly placed another document on the table. There is one more thing. It was our father's final will. Nathan looked confused. I don't want his money. The lawyer smiled gently. It's not money. It is something else. He unfolded a property deed. Our childhood home. The house where Nathan and I had spent our first 4 years together. The house had never been sold. Our father had quietly maintained it all those years. The lawyer explained, he instructed me never to sell it. He said one day his children might want somewhere to begin again. Mother burst into tears. I thought it was gone. It was waiting. A week later, the 4 of us stood outside that old house. The paint had faded. The garden was overgrown. The porch creaked beneath our feet. Yet somehow, it still felt like home. Nathan smiled. I remember this tree. I laughed. You pushed me off that swing? You deserved it. I was 3. You stole my cookies. Daniel laughed louder than either of us. Mother looked happier than I'd seen in years. For the first time, our family wasn't remembering tragedy. We were creating new memories. As the sun began to set, Daniel quietly reached into his pocket. He pulled out the same photograph that had once nearly destroyed our marriage. The photograph of Nathan and me standing together outside a cafe. He smiled. I almost let this picture ruin everything. Then he turned it over. On the back, beneath his original words, he had added another sentence. A photograph can capture a moment, but only the truth reveals the whole story. He handed it to me. I don't need to keep it anymore. Why? Because now, whenever I look at our family, I don't see suspicion. I see proof that love is strongest when it chooses trust over fear. I slipped the photograph into our family album, not as a reminder of the accusation that almost tore us apart, but as a reminder that sometimes the picture people believe tells the whole story, is only the beginning, and the real story, the one built on truth, forgiveness, and second chances, is always far more beautiful than anyone could have imagined.